Hello and welcome to
Hey, we like your pod.
And we're going to tell you why. Hi, it's Dawn here, and I'm joined, as always, by my trusted partner, Matt Pickett. And this week, hi, Matt. And this week, our very special guest, Camille Davis. Camille, hi. It's so good to see you. I always thought your name was Camille Monet because that's your Twitter. Your Twitter.
I mean, it is my name. That's just my first and my middle name. I've always loved my middle name being Monet. So when I was told to get on Twitter all of these years ago, I was like, what should my handle be? And I was like, I'm going to go my first and middle name here and just rock with that.
I love it.
It is a great name. Yeah. I mean, of course, it makes you think of Janelle Monet, who is amazing.
Yes.
Like, that's a good association right there.
Mm-hmm. The Monets are, out here doing their thing.
That's right.
That's right. So how was your week, Camille? We talked a little bit before the show, but what's going on in your world this week?
It's been a fun week, a really fun week. Been doing a lot of draft prep for the NBA draft happening next week. So have been in a lot of film and things of that sort, but also just trying to enjoy the weather, but staying cool. It's been really hot in Milwaukee. So enjoying it when I can, but also trying to stay cool at the same time.
Yeah.
It's been hot everywhere lately. It seems like here in Cincinnati, it's been crazy in the 90s for like a week. It's not great.
We've had our first, we don't have heat where I am. I mean, they might out east of here. I'm not sure, but we've had our first, like I'm getting a lot of notifications about wildfires. So, and it used to be that we wouldn't get notifications. We wouldn't get wildfire notifications either, but we wouldn't get wildfires until fall. That's like that's kind of when our temperature is the highest and it's more dry at that time of year generally, but we're getting fires we're getting fires pretty much year round. But this year I've gotten like 10 different notifications of fires. They've all been small, thankfully, and knocked out and everything, but you still get notified in case you're driving or whatever.
Wow. That is, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine.
Fires.
Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Normally where I am, we don't get hit here on the coast, but it has happened in the last decade where things are really changing. We were just talking about climate change a little before, and I was thinking, it hasn't. It is changing because I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, Santa Monica had fires all the way up to the water. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Those crazy pictures. Yeah. And that's how it was one year here. It's actually called the Poinsettia fires. And I was like, I can see a lot of different directions in my apartment because I have windows everywhere. And I could see just big fires. And then the one coming, I mean, they were far away.
Yeah.
I mean, but there was the Poinsettia fire wasn't. And it was like, what way do I go? Like, because they're
into the water. Straight in the ocean.
Exactly. It's like, I guess I have to jump in the water if that's what happens. But it never happened. But it's really hard because I don't know I think the first time I had like a super bad experience with the fire where they're having us evacuate even though we really didn't need to here on the coast. And you're like, well, boy, where do I go? So because everyone else is evacuating. And I just felt like because the air quality was so bad that I just wanted to hop on a plane and just take off for a week and just let it all do what it was going to do. And you couldn't even the FAVE was closed down. So you couldn't even get to the airport at least for a day. So it's like a really weird feeling of being trapped. That's what
That's a different reality than me complaining about mid-90s and the humidity. I tell you that.
Yeah, it's not all the time.
I get sweaty walking places. Like, oh my God, Dawn.
I know. Well, it can be pretty frightening. So, but we've had a couple of years of really at least up by me, almost no fire danger. And then, so this year, all of a sudden getting all these notifications, like, I wonder if it's going to be a different year this year with that. So, because they come and go with, like, what happens is there's regrowth because things get burnt down, trees get burnt down. And then you have like rain and mudslides in some areas, but then the regrowth happens and then it starts burning all over again. And of course, climate change has a little to do with that. But generally speaking, it was never, like, I've been out here almost 40 years and it wasn't an issue until the last decade.
Oof.
Even 5 years. Yeah, it's changed a lot. So anyway, that was fun. I don't know.
Show today.
No, it's scary. I'm more concerned about the air quality, though.
Sure.
Anyway, well, Maddie, how was your week?
Let me see how I follow that. It's been a great week. It's been a great week. Yeah, no highlights, nothing particular. Just things are good. Just watched a couple of good shows. Got caught up on some things in the last week, actually. I would recommend a couple real fast, so kind of like early superlatives for you, Don. Just finished watching Behind Her Eyes on Netflix, and I'm one episode short of the first season of White Lotus on HBO. I'm like behind on both these. I'm like late to the party in these, but they're both really great. Would recommend.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, good shows. Good shows.
And what are they about?
Oh, real fast here. Behind Her Eyes is a show about a couple that moves to a new city, and he's a psychologist, and she doesn't have a job, and they meet a woman, and madness ensues, and it's really good and really fascinating, and some weird stuff goes on. It's good. And then White Lotus is about the first season is about a resort that a bunch of rich people go to, and it's in Hawaii, and madness ensues there too, but nothing supernatural. So, but both like really well written, really, really great performances from the actors and stuff like that. So they're both a lot of fun.
Okay.
So are you watching them with the whole family? Are the kids watching them? Or those are not?
With my wife, but
wife,
no,
but the kids, they're not
shows for the kids by any stretch. No.
Okay. Just wanted to check. I mean, I didn't know how. Yeah, I didn't know. So I was just looking to see if there were any movies in this summer. There's nothing really to see at the.
Well, my kids actually, the camp that they go to, they go on like field trips and stuff like that. And nearby, a lot of the theaters will have like early shows that are open to like kids for free. So they'll take the kids to those a lot. They just saw the Inside Out 2 that just came out, and they both liked it a lot because, Pixar usually count on them for good things. They came home, they said, "Dad, this will make you cry." I don't know where they're getting that from. Not like I have a history of crying at Pixar movies at home. So reliable tear jerking. So yeah.
Well, yeah, this is the time of year where the kids movies come out, right?
Yeah, outside of I just went to see Bad Boys, the new Bad Boys installment, and that's a rated R, good time for adults. I tell you that.
Is it? What's that about?
So it's the fourth installment of the franchise where Martin Lawrence and Will Smith play these two cops in Miami. So like it just continues on the story for them. It's like an action comedy.
Oh, okay. Well, comedy I like.
Yeah, but you would have to see the first three first for it to all make sense.
Right.
So it builds on the other stories.
Yeah. Okay. I could do that.
You're good. That's your assignment for the week. The first three, go to the fourth one in the theater, report back next week.
Yep, they're all on Hulu too. The first three are on Hulu. See,
there you go.
Oh, okay. There you go. That's what I love about streaming. You can like watch the whole Godfather series if you want, and all of it. Everything's there. I've been listening to a trial that just never seems to want to end. That's been my listen to. I haven't been watching much of anything lately, but tonight they were doing we have this really cool little hippie kind of theater here on the beach. It's called the La Paloma. It's been there forever, and they'll play flicks, like old flicks. They have new flicks too, but mostly. And so they're projecting Stop Making Sense tonight.
Ooh, nice.
And so I think it's going to be there. I think it just started tonight. So I was thinking of maybe going and checking that out this weekend, even though I've seen it. Yeah, that would be fun. Talking Heads. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm showing my age.
I know, right? I even felt old and like, ooh, that makes sense. All right, David Byrne, let's go.
Anyway, anyway, but it's a fun experience to go to flicks like that, or like,
Mhm.
you know, there used to be places that would just be kind of known for certain genres and
Mhm.
foreign films and things. There just aren't those places have all closed down. So
Yeah.
mostly. Anywho. Okay. Well, hey, so here's the idea. When we have a guest, we love to have our audience get to know. We'd love to get to know you better, Camille, but also for our audience to get to know you better. And the way we usually start out by doing that is to read your Twitter, and from there,
Oh.
I have developed some curiosity about you. So here it is. So Camille Davis. Again, welcome. So your Twitter reads Camille Davis at Camille Monet. I play NBA 2K and talk sports on some dope podcasts. I can attest to that. Very good. At Technical Foul, and that's TACK, Nicole Foul. Locked on Bucks. Pack a Day podcast, and Cheesehead TV's Carry the G in Milwaukee. You have Hebrews 13:1-2, must be your favorite scripture, I'm guessing. And you hail from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, gosh, I have so many questions. Your Twitter just makes me curious about so many things. So, we kind of touched on this already. Your username, along with Matt, reminds me of Janelle Monet, who I absolutely adore.
Mhm.
And that's your middle name, Monae, in case anyone's
Yes.
looking for you on Twitter.
Yep.
And they
I
should
love
be.
the story
They
with
should
that too. Yeah, I hope so. Please follow me. My mom was a big Bill Cosby fan. Of course, this is before all of the other legal
Mhm.
stuff had come out about Bill Cosby. And his wife's name was Camille. So she named me after Bill Cosby's wife.
Mm.
And at the time, one of her favorite jewelry brands was Monet, but it was spelled with the ET. So she
Yep.
was, I'm going to change it so people can pronounce it correctly because she didn't want people to say Monette. So
Right.
she spelled it Monae just to make it look the way that it sounds.
Oh,
Mhm.
it's so pretty.
that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I know Monet jewelry.
Yes, that was her favorite.
So you are a Wisconsin native, or are you just in Milwaukee now?
Born and raised. I've been in Milwaukee my whole life except for 1 year where I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, before I started middle school. But other than that, it's been Milwaukee to the core.
Nice. I love Milwaukee.
Milwaukee's awesome. I mean, obviously not a terrible city by any stretch. And sheesh. And I actually was watching Top Chef this last season, and it was in Milwaukee, which was
Yes.
awesome. It was just in Wisconsin entirely, but mostly Milwaukee. And it was, I grew up in Madison, and so I kind of know Milwaukee, but not great. So seeing all the stuff there in Milwaukee was like, oh man, I should spend some time there. It looks awesome.
Yeah, the city's evolved a lot too over the last
Mhm.
decade or so. Like there are just so many different options from, we've always had like the public market, but now we even have like the 3rd Street market, and they're just trying to really revitalize some areas. Like I'm looking forward to next week, we're having a night market in front of the 3rd Street market where they're actually shutting down Wisconsin Avenue for a few blocks. And it's going to be vendors coming out on the street at night, selling products, local vendors with music and entertainment as well. So they do that at the end of every month throughout the summers. Milwaukee summers are undefeated. I think it's because it's cold so often, so that when it's nice, it's same thing in all the Midwest. When it gets nice, you cram all the good activities into those warm days. So Summerfest is starting today. So there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
You gonna go to any of the Summerfest concerts? Any that you're looking forward to? Or
Absolutely. My husband brought tickets to the SZA concert. She's one of his favorite R&B artists, so we're going to that at the amphitheater. And then to show my age, I'm a millennial through and through. So there are some like mid 2000s rappers coming, and I'm like, I have to go and see these rappers and these singers, Paul Wall, Mario, and Lloyd, who when I was in high school, like that was like the soundtrack to many summers. So I'm looking forward to that.
I was teaching in an urban school, and those guys were coming out as teaching high school. So a lot of those artists you just mentioned, like the kids I was teaching were telling me about them while I was teaching them about like Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie. So it's like, oh yeah, I know those guys.
Yeah, that's the way music goes. Like my catalog is all over the place. Like one of my favorite shows I saw at Summerfest was last year, actually. Earth, Wind, and Fire came to Summerfest. And it was such a good show.
Oh, they do a good live show. Yeah.
Yeah. I love them. Love that band. I remember when rap like just started to be a thing, and in Southern California, like where I am, especially because I'm way down in the San Diego
Mhm.
area, so it's not super like it's real surfy and not a little
Yeah.
behind on certain things. So, but I was listening to rap on the radio all the time, and the guy I was dating at the time was like, "What is this?" I had to like, I was in love with it. I felt like it took 10 years for people to start really
Get it.
understanding what I was like getting into. So,
Don, you
yeah.
liked it before it was cool. All right.
Yeah. Early
Oh,
adopter.
yeah.
That's right.
Oh,
OG Don.
always, still, yeah, still. So, yeah, I love Janelle Monáe for her music and her performance. I think the first time I actually saw her was, do you guys remember when the Obamas would have artists come and
Yes.
to the White House?
Mhm.
Yeah, and that was such a different time. Anyway, they had, I think it was their last concert that they had there, and it's on YouTube, and you can see the whole
Oh,
concert.
Oh, okay.
And I have watched that whole concert just so many times.
I'm looking
I
it
think
up.
that was the first time I saw Janelle Monáe. It's quite a few years ago, and then she's just, I love her fashion sense.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love, I mean, I'm into fashion, so that was my career. So just, she's just impeccable that way. So yeah. So, okay. So now we can presume, yes or no. Can we presume you come from a family of Bucks and Packers fan? Is your whole family sports fans, or are you an outlier?
You can presume it, but it would only be half accurate. So I grew up in what I always was like, my family was just so unique because I grew up in a house with my granny until she passed when I was young, my mom, and then her three brothers. So like always had my uncles and my mom and my granny. So we always had a really full house, had cousins who would come spend the summer with us and like
Wow.
live with us the entire summer. So our house was always full of life and energy. And my uncles who got me into sports were my uncle Michael and my uncle Tony in particular. And Uncle Michael was a Cowboys fan. And keep in mind, I'm a 90s kid.
Mhm.
So when he was a Cowboys fan and I'm like learning football, I was just
Right.
watching the Cowboys smack the Packers over and over
Yes.
and over.
Oh,
And
That's
my Uncle
hateful.
Tony was a Packers fan. And eventually my Uncle Michael said, you know what? Loyalty matters in sports. Okay. I don't care that you're 4 years old. I'm going to need you to pick a team and stay with it.
oh,
So ironically enough, I remember this so clearly because Brett Favre was number 4. And I said, I'm going to go with that team because I'm
aw.
4, he's 4. Like, this is what we're rocking with. And he was like, you made the worst decision of your life. I can't believe you picked the Packers over the Cowboys. So he would make me watch all through my childhood Packers games with him, Packer Cowboys games with him. He would buy the VHSs right when the Cowboys won the championship and make me watch those. That's like slow torture. So it was, sports became like a real big bonding experience for me and my uncles because they weren't the type of
Aw.
guys to be like, hey, I love you, kid. It was more like, do you see what Jordan just did? Like, that's amazing. Like, look at this.
Mhm.
So not many Bucks fans at that time. My Uncle Michael was a Lakers, Magic Johnson fan. And then my Uncle Tony just was a fan of the sport. So he didn't really have any Bucks allegiances. And my
Mhm.
Bucks fandom started with the '01 Ray Allen, Sam Cassell, big dog teams when I was like in middle school and got to say like, hey, like these guys are really cool. After Jordan retired, they became my favorites.
Yeah.
We talk so often on the show about how like sports fandom is passed down through family members and that sort of like way of bonding together. So I always love hearing stories like that. And I gotta say too, I think it's so impressive, Camille, that you are such like a thoroughly knowledgeable person in 2 sports. I feel like a lot of people like can talk about one sport really well and kind of know their stuff, but like it's like you're like ambidextrous. And
Yeah.
so like clearly you had some good people kind of bringing you up and showing you the stuff, and then building that interest in you so you could become as smart and all the stuff as you are now.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Again, I give that all to my uncles because you know how uncles can be too. They're harder on you than anyone else. So if I had an opinion on something, they would make me defend it. And of course, they had decades of Rolodex sports to reference in our conversation. So it was again a big bonding experience from basketball to football. My Uncle Michael plays golf. He's tried to get me into that with him. not all the way there for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a family of my uncles were all big sports guys, and they played like basketball in high school and things of that sort too. So it was just a love that was passed down and a chance for us to kind of sit together and bond.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I love it. That's great. All right, so your uncles are still around. Michael's still around.
Yeah, my
Tony.
Uncle Michael. Yeah, my Uncle Michael's still around. My Uncle Tony actually passed about a year ago today. So that was a tough one, because that was like that's my dad pretty much, because even after other uncles moved out the house, my granny passes, my mom and my Uncle Tony always lived together. So when I would go home, like to see my folks, it was my mom and my Uncle Tony, but he passed away after a battle with prostate cancer. So it was a long journey, but honestly, he's why I'm doing this today, to be completely honest with you. I was doing technical file in the background, and he kept saying, like, you're kind of good at this. Like, you're getting better at this. You're getting better at this. And as he was getting sicker, more opportunities started presenting themselves. And right before he passed away, I was telling him, like, Aaron Nackler from Cheesehead TV just reached out to me about doing a podcast. Like, you won't believe it. And he's like, I don't know who that is. He's like, but it sounds like a big deal. He's like, so you go, girl. And like, he passed away before we got to make the official announcement. But grief is tricky. Grief is really tricky, but it's also been a great motivator for me.
Yeah, a great motivator and a great way to, kind of honor your uncle's memory and to keep those memories, the good times, kind of in your mind, I would think. I mean, not trying to like speak for your emotions, but I just feel like that would be a great way to kind of keep that memory in a good place and in a good way and kind of in the forefront,
Yeah, it absolutely is. That's how I look at it. Like, even on the days where it's like I'm feeling sad about it, like just giving myself the grace to take the day and then get back at it tomorrow. Just this understanding, like, that's how this is going to go. It's a new adjustment to losing a crucial piece of my life. So taking it day by day, but understanding, like, he saw this talent in me, and I took a chance, quit my full-time job, and said, I'm going to do this full-time and really try to make something out of this. So I feel like, I mean, you mentioned the Hebrew, so I'm a spiritual person. And I just kind of feel like this is where I was supposed to be. Like, this is kind of what helped nudge me this way. And I know he's watching over me, and he's making things happen in the background and advocating for me.
That is so sweet. I had no idea. When I ask questions, I don't, like, anyone who's listening to this show or watching, we don't rehearse the show. So this was not, I'm just like in awe of this answer and just feeling really appreciative that you're willing to share this and share your uncle with us, because I feel like I know them a little bit.
Yeah, Uncle Tony was great. So if I can have a chance to talk about Uncle Tony, I always will find a way to.
Oh, anytime you want to come here and talk about Uncle Tony. Tony, I don't know why, but Tony has always been one of my favorite names. Whether it's a male or female, I just love that name. I don't know. It's a great name. What about mom? Does mom like sports?
Mom is funny. Mom likes sports, but they stress her out to the point where she can't watch a full game. Like, she'll call me and be like, okay, we're doing good. I gotta change the channel. And then she'll call back like, okay, I'm watching again. I can't believe this is happening. Like, she is wonderful. So, like, she loves it, and she'll call me and ask questions. She sees them like Good Morning America and things like that. So she has a lot of love for it, but she's like, it's just too stressful to watch full games for her, especially once you get to the playoffs.
Yeah. I bet.
The stakes are higher. So yeah.
I've mentioned on this show before how I learned. I mean, I'm from Wisconsin, but I didn't like football. I didn't like it at all.
Oh, really?
And I met this older woman who's now in her upper 80s. And she was just a massive Packers fan. And so when she learned that I was from Wisconsin, she just assumed I was. But anyway, long story short, she ended up kind of teaching me to be a fan and teaching me about the game, because that's why no one ever explained anything to me, and I didn't know what was going on. So I wasn't interested, but she's fragile, her health now. And so she is afraid to watch. She gets too stressed out. And sometimes her husband, who isn't anywhere near, like, he doesn't care that much about sports, but she's a real sports fanatic, a lot of different sports, but she's a big time Packers fan. And she's afraid she's going to have a heart attack.
I mean, they are called the heart attack. They were heart attack pack for a while too.
That's
So
That's right.
they can stress you out. They can stress you out.
But she's quite the fan though, because out here in Southern California, she is originally from like Connecticut.
Oh.
So, and then moved out here, but her son and her son's son and her grandson, she only has one son, and he got married a couple of years ago. And guess what? He married someone from Green Bay. And yeah, I mean, because that whole family are just nuts, and they go back to Lambeau and watch. Yeah, it's just, sometimes I send her things for him, but that's funny because I wonder if when I get older, I'll feel that way. Like this is just too much stress. Right now, it's more like it's fun, like getting on a roller coaster, but I can see how that could be scary, you know?
I mean, I've had my moments of hiding behind the couch myself when it's like, I just can't look right now. And you peek back up. I get it from my mom. So like when I'm watching a game, I'm really into a game.
Me too. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, my sister too. A lot of times we're texting back and forth, and she's like, "Oh, it's so nervous." Or even before the game, can you imagine how the players must feel? I mean, I cannot imagine how it would feel, especially like you say, as it gets later on in the season, and the stakes are higher and higher.
Yeah, and like running on the field, and you have like, you know, thousands and thousands of people cheering for you. Like that must be massive adrenaline moments, I would think.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's get into that scripture. I love this scripture. So since it's in your Twitter, I'm going to call attention to it. It's Hebrews 13, 1 and 2. And the translation I looked up reads, "Let your brotherly love continue. Do not forget hospitality, for through it some unknowingly entertained angels." And I just love this scripture too. It's not one that people commonly fall upon as their favorite. You know, it's usually a Psalms or something. So that is just such a beautiful scripture. Do you think you've ever unknowingly entertained an angel?
I am not sure. I might have. And that's what's so cool about that scripture. It's another reminder of treat people just how you would want to be treated. And that's something that my mom said to me a lot as a kid. Just give out the energy you want to receive back in the world, even if you don't get it back at the end of the day. And I've realized over time, like just living life, no one has 100% approval rating. Like I'm not going to be for everybody. Everyone is not going to like me, but all that I can do is be authentic and genuine. And then my tribe will find me. And for all those who I'm not, you know, their flavor of the month or flavor of ever, the least I can do is be kind about it, because there's no ill will about that. So yeah, I love that verse. I found it in high school and I was just like, wow, like angels are really amongst us. Like that's super cool. Like I love that idea and that concept. So I just try to be kind, just period. Just take that time, bring peace, bring kindness, because we need a lot more of that in this world.
Yeah, and energy you put out there will often come back to yourself, and that's a good thing, you know.
Yeah, that's what I subscribe to for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good.
And the people who wouldn't like you, like you don't have time for haters and fools. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't deserve your attention anyhow. So
yeah,
it's, you know, once I understood that, it's like that's cool. Like that's just life. Like no one has 100% approval rating. So just everybody who I touch or come across, I just try to make sure like at least they can say like she was kind of cool. I might not agree with her, but you know, she was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing for people to feel that way about you. I was thinking about somebody for some reason before the show who I know doesn't like me. It's a neighbor. She's a neighbor and she just does not like me. And I was kind of giggling about it because it's like, I've never done anything. I've never said anything, but it's just kind of like, hey, you know, you don't have to like me. It's okay. She makes it
nice to you.
I'll still be me. And she makes it a point to let me know. Okay, so technical foul. So what do you do with your technical foul? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so when I was still working full time, I was working for a local foundation in Milwaukee. And again, I loved it because it was a chance to try to be connected to the community and look out. But I knew sports was my passion at this time. So I was in grad school getting my master's in sport management. And while I was doing that, I was like, I want to do something sport related, but like I have a full-time job. So it's not like I can go get an internship because I have a family. So I'm trying, I have responsibilities.
Mhm.
So let me start this podcast on the side. And I reached out to two different friends of mine who didn't know each other. They knew of each other. But both of them had mentioned to me wanting to do a podcast with me before. So reached out to two of them. And I was like, okay, the three of us is a good mix, but we're missing a certain ingredient. So reached out to another friend. His name is Eric. And I was like, we need you on this podcast. So it's four of us. And we called it Technical Foul as a play on, of course, in basketball, you get technical fouls. But to play on our names as well, because it's Tim, Eric, Camille, and Ken. That's why it's spelled TECK instead of the normal TECH for technical.
Okay.
So it's a play on all of our names. We've been doing the show since 2017 in the background. And once that started kind of rolling, getting momentum, I started getting opportunities with like Locked On Bucks for guest appearances, which then led to co-hosting the show full time. And then also helped me get discovered, I would say that's the best word, by Aaron Nagler, who saw our football takes on the show, reached out to me, which then led to Andy Herman finding me and then reaching out in that way. So Technical Foul has been like my steady ship. It's a weekly podcast where it goes maybe an hour and a half-ish every week. And we primarily focus on NFL, NBA, and pro wrestling. Those are the three main tenets of the show. It feels like, I always say, like happy hour with friends. It's a very like conversational show, but also get into the X's and O's in a way that's really fun and some culture conversation, because a lot of the media spaces, especially like with Black representation, there's not much of it. So we're really proud of the fact that me as a Black woman is one of the co-hosts, and I have three Black men on the side of me as well. So we get to mix in culture as well as sports and just it's like hanging out with your friends. And I love that about Technical Foul.
Oh, neat.
I hadn't checked it out yet because I thought it was more basketball kind of centric, just based on the name. But now you've talked me into checking it out for sure.
Yeah.
If you were to try to talk somebody else into it, like, what would you say is maybe like one of the main reasons for a person to like check it out if they have never heard it or don't know who you are or anything like that?
Because a lot of sports shows are for gimmicks. They are bringing up topics just for debate or for the sake of argument's sake. Meanwhile, in Technical Foul, it's more so of people getting together with an interest in the subject, in the sport, and not looking for clickbait. It's no gimmicks. It's real chemistry because the four of us are really good friends at this point, being in each other's weddings, big life moments like that at this point. Very conversational, but you'll walk away learning something and laughing at something in every single episode because of the combination of personalities and just the general conversation.
That was a great sales pitch.
I like it. That's a great
I feel like
question, Matt.
The best podcasts, I always feel like, are you're just hearing people have a fun conversation. You're just listening in on a conversation. And so it sounds like exactly that. Very cool.
It's a lot of plan. I learned too, is like, it takes a lot of planning to make a podcast seem like you did not plan it at all.
Right.
And that's part of why I love Tech File too, because it feels really organic. But if you saw like our documents and behind the scenes and all of the, like a lot goes into it. And I'm really proud of the product that comes out every week.
Nice.
Ooh,
We're gonna have at least one new subscriber, me, definitely. And we'll get some other people start checking it out too.
Yeah. So naturally you would, so since it's NBA, NFL, so naturally you're talking more about basketball during the basketball season, more about football during the football season, and then the wrestling, does that have a season, or is that like a year?
Wrestling is consistent. There is no off season when it comes to wrestling, which is why it's a good like third tenet to always have, because there's always content there. You know, it's a pay-per-view every 4 weeks. The show is going to be on every Monday, every Friday. It's a steady rotation. So that's always consistent. And meanwhile, of course, football has its off season. NBA has an off season, but a benefit is that the off seasons aren't really long because there's so much to talk about during each off season now.
100%. I agree.
But right now for NFL, like this is really, really the dead period for NFL. But in a month, it's going to be so much to talk about with training camps kicking off.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just released the schedule this week of when training camp, the open practices are going to be, and it's still not the year I'm gonna be able to make it up for that, but one of these years, man, I want to be there for that. It looks so much fun. All the stuff you see people posting on Twitter and whatnot about the what they're seeing and hearing and hanging out and all that kind of stuff makes me very jealous. But we're it'll be here before we know it for sure.
It will. And I see in the comments if I discuss WNBA content as well, and we do. we do discuss the W, and since the NBA season is over, the W content is going to be the main forefront as well. So absolutely W content on the show. And even if you check out the channel, there are some clips pulled out where we're discussing like the Caitlin Clark stuff and things like that as well.
Cool. So yeah, and that is one of the, and sorry, chat, we didn't say hi to you. That was one of the questions from the chat, because I'm just
We have
so
been
like
neglecting the chat tonight.
I'm so into Camille. I've been like fangirling her for a while. So Camille, there's a question from True Crime Wifey, and she asks, I'm wondering if you discussed WNBA on your channel. So yeah, so a little bit you just answered there. That's wonderful. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a podcast. I don't know why. I just know you from Locked On Bucks and then from Andy Herman's show. So I didn't know about the other two. So that's really cool. Okay. I had a question. What was it? I had another question there, but I forgot what it was. So, okay. So Locked On Bucks, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, Locked On Bucks as a kind of a franchise, like they have Locked On for
Everything.
Yeah. Locked On whatever team, and NBA, NFL, all kinds of other sports, right?
Yeah, they have like Locked On NHL, Locked On NFL, all of the major sports leagues. They have Locked On College Sports, Locked On Women's Basketball. And then within that, they normally have its own dedicated podcast for each team. So I'm a co-host of Locked On Bucks with Justin Garcia, who's a voice of the Bucks Radio Network, and Frank Madden, who is a long time voice of the pod. Like, he started Locked On Bucks before it was even in this particular network and as big as it is. So we still have Frank around as well. And it's Monday through Friday, every single day, even through the off season. Our off season does not start until free agency is already kind of like at its ends for the most part. So even though the Bucks were out in the first round in May, we have still been doing 5 shows a week with Bucks content. So it's really fun. So it's a quick listen for all your Milwaukee Bucks takes, something you can listen to on the way home or, doing a quick chore, normally about 30, 45 minutes an episode.
Oh, I like that. I did not know that. And I'm not in tune to the draft for the NBA like I am the NFL. I'm not all in on it, but I do love basketball. When I was a kid, when I was back in Wisconsin and growing up, it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who later became Wilson. I love telling this story because I got to see him play in Milwaukee. But I do love basketball. It's so fast and exciting. It's one of the few sports I actually I was never much of a spectator sport person either. I can't sit still long enough to watch. I can now, but I love basketball. So you were saying you're getting ready for the prepping material for the the NBA draft coming up next week?
Yep. The NBA draft is now a 2-day event, which is the first time it's ever been 2 days. So it's next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time, and then Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m., which I was like, that's such a weird time, but that is what it is. And the Bucks have currently 2 draft picks, but they might be trading one of those draft picks. I don't know how likely it is for the Bucks to take 2 more rookies onto this team when they already have 4 kind of young guys who they need to develop. That's a lot that would be almost half your roster. Young players that need development. And this is a team trying to compete for a championship. So I'm really curious just to see how this draft unfolds, because as you know, in the NFL draft, there's normally some people who are like, oh, this is the number 1 prospect for sure. And this draft for the NBA doesn't have that dynamic to it. Like, we're not sure who's going number 1. There's a lot of people who have different opinions on who should go where. So it should be a really fun draft because of the randomness. We don't know how this one's going to unfold.
Right. I was really, maybe you can explain why Jrue Holiday had to get traded away. I'm happy for Jrue in winning with the Celtics because it was earlier this week that happened. But I really miss him. I wish he wasn't traded away. Why did they have to trade him away?
He was one of my favorite Bucks too. But the reason for Jrue being the one that was traded was purely financial. And I always say this with trades: to get somebody good, you got to give up somebody good. So at the time, the Bucks had just re-signed Chris Middleton and they just re-signed Brook Lopez. So neither one of those contracts were eligible to be traded. And the only way to make the money work was literally sending out Jrue Holiday in the trade. So it was a situation of, this is what has to be done. And if you watch the Bucks in the playoffs, One of their biggest problems over the past few years, not including this year with the injuries, but it's just been the half court offense tends to stall. The offense stall. So I understood why John Horst was like, I have a chance to get like dynamic offense. I'm going to make this swap to try to get more offense. So come playoff time, we don't have those same lulls on the offensive side of the ball that we've had in the past.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember it being about the money, but it's always about the money. I mean, but I wasn't sure if it was really, really, really necessary. But it sounds to me like you're saying it was the only way that they could. Yeah.
It's always sad to see a Drew Holiday or an Aaron Jones leave the team.
Yeah.
Of course, but it's just how it goes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The business of sports is brutal when you're a fan because you grow those attachments to these players. So it's always so hard to watch them go.
And it's weird. Oh, go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
I'll say sometimes they go and then they like go completely crazy, and you're like, "Oh, we got rid of them just in time." That can happen too. So.
Are you thinking about a certain quarterback that might be in New York?
I might be.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's locked on. So those are your two, basketball and basketball football. So now we have what is your role at Pack-A-Day Podcast? Now I've seen you with Andy on Pack-A-Day Podcast, and have you done any of the other days outside, like, you know, he has Monday through Sunday different hosts? Yeah.
Every day. So yeah, right now I'm a contributor on the audio side for Pack-A-Day. And we were the Friday crew, but we have moved on to being the marvelous Monday crew with myself and Dan and Monty. So yeah, it's every week, every Monday. We're on the Pack-A-Day podcast feed, the audio side.
Oh, nice.
Right. We've mentioned your crew a couple times in the show now since you guys formed, and I think I always have good things to say about each one of the individual crews. They'll have their like strengths for sure, but the chemistry that the three of you have, like, and have only been together for like kind of a short time compared to some of the crews, I think is really impressive. And that's three really smart people who know ball really well with a lot of good takes. It's a really fun show. So people haven't checked out the Monday podcast, the Monday Pack-A-Day Podcast audio version. It's easy to overlook because it's like early in the week, so you're getting caught up with other stuff. You know, it's kind of an unfortunate day to have you guys on because of that, but it's quickly become one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. That's something I know. As soon as we started recording, it was like an instant chemistry with the three of us. So I always look forward to those recordings.
Nice.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I knew that. I forgot. I have no short-term memory.
You're asking on behalf of the uninformed viewer, is what it was.
Yeah,
you knew you're just trying to get out the information. So
I remember us talking about it, but I love those guys too. Okay, so, and even if it's recorded Monday and comes out Monday, you don't have to listen on Monday. I've been known to listen to like a whole week's worth, on one day.
Back.
So, okay. And then with Cheesehead TV, Carry the G in Milwaukee, what's that about?
Yeah, so Carry the G at MKE, that's an end season show. So once the season wrapped up, that was that for that. But yeah, it's really fun just being able to break down the Packer games every week with Aaron Nagler. Like, that's for me one of like the holy grails of just Packers content. So I remember when he followed me on Twitter, I was like, oh my God, I was like, Aaron's following me, y'all. Like, can you believe it? And then when he reached out, like, hey, like, we should do something, I was like, are you serious right now? Like, absolutely. Like, let's do this. Let's do this for sure. And ironically enough, when he reached out, I had made a joke because before he reached out, that was last year where the Bucks lost to the Miami Heat in the first round. Bucks were a number 1 seed, got bounced by an 8 seed. And I was just like, I'm so disgusted with how this played out. I'm going to become the most knowledgeable Packers person around because this season ended so early. I'm getting a jump on the next Packers season. And then I'm doing a show with Aaron Nagler on Cheesehead TV every single week. So like the universe is funny in that way. I'm really thankful. But yeah, it's just an end season show where we recap the last week of Packers football.
Oh, awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I want to take a second and highlight a comment from one of our viewers here. This is our friend Joe Pearson, who is one half of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Very, very good stuff. Good website too. And I know how he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry you have to record with Kotnick," because I just want to say 2 things about that comment here, Joe. First of all, giving Dan crap is fun, but also it's I need to say too, Dan, if you hear this, man, you're a lovely human being, and I'm glad to know you. And it's fun to give you crap. So.
It's so fun. And hello to Lorenzo, our loyal listener. Always good to see your face. Always good to see your name.
There you go.
And True Crime Wifey also, this is an interesting question because I've seen a little bit of this too. Why are we always seeing Caitlin Clark getting fouled in such a nasty way? Is that just because that's what the press is doing, or they're just looking for it? Is that what's happening with all the players, or is something going on where she's being picked on? Because I've wondered that too.
That's a long conversation. We actually have a video on Technical Files YouTube page about that particular situation in depth. But the short of it, I will say this, is that one, the W is a very physical league. It always has been. And I think that because of Caitlin Clark's star power that she's bringing from college, there are a lot of new eyes on the product who aren't necessarily used to the physicality in the W. That's part of it. And the other part of it is too that some people are trying to send a message to Caitlin Clark, but that's part of like the hazing in the league that's going on. Like there was also a really hard foul on Angel Reese, a rookie for the Chicago Sky, but that did not get the same attention as what happened to Caitlin Clark because she has such a big fan base behind her. So anything that happens with Caitlin Clark is going to be magnified. It's one of those situations where it's like a lot of things are true at the same time. And when people only point to one piece of it, they're missing the full picture.
Right. Good. I appreciate that insight, really, because that's something I've been wondering about.
Yeah, me too. And I've been wondering if it's just, like you said, people don't have eyes on that. And so maybe they expect like the ladies to be more demure and like gentler, which of course is ridiculous. But it almost sounds like the way you're talking about Caitlin Clark fans, like they're Swifties almost, like the Swifties of sports.
Yeah, they're diehard. And I get it because the way that she played, there is no denying the fact that girl is a baller. Like she can really hoop. But she's also adjusting to a new league, a more physical league. It's going to take her time. And if you've been watching her recently and the Fever, you see her starting to put it together a little bit more consistently. Like it's just going to take her a little time to get it, but she'll be Caitlin Clarkin all through the league really, really soon.
And she says she's not upset about not making the Olympic team.
Yeah,
Caitlin said that as well as True Crime Wifey. Actually, they both said it.
It made sense. The team is stacked. It's really, really stacked with a lot of great talent to the point where if Caitlin did make it, I'm not sure who you would take off of that list to put her on, given her production and given what the others have done already in international play as well, just their careers and how they're playing. So I think Caitlin's going to be on the next team. It's no sweat that she didn't make her first one. Like she has time to develop, and I think that she'll be on the Olympic team the next go round. Okay.
And in 4 years. And when are the Olympics starting? I thought they were supposed to start
next
by now.
month.
Still another month?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And True Crime Wifey says you are correct. Not many were watching the WNBA before this year. Angel Reese gets hurt too. I can't read tonight. Hurt too. I agree. Viewers skyrocketed, which is great. I follow women's volleyball because there's a new professional volleyball league this year. And we were lucky enough to have a team here in San Diego, and they're pretty physical too, but they're not really playing. I mean, basketball has become so physical and it's more one-on-one, but I mean, the way they spike the ball and like people get hurt, break their fingers and trying to go up after them and stuff. But it's pretty interesting seeing women become that physical in their game, because we just, in my generation, like, I don't know how else to say it, but we would just expect that from the men. Women were a little bit more timid, but it's really great to see women compete like that.
Yeah,
all in.
I love it. And again, with me growing up in a house with consistently three uncles at a time, where it was like, if you're going to compete, like they're always like, we're not treating you different because you're a girl. Like if you want to play this game against us or do whatever it is you're going to do against us, then we're going to play this game. They did not let me win. And I also had like the big cousins and things of that sort. So competitive, that's in my nature, as well as like even the trash talk. My family can really get me going when it comes to the trash talk. I try to keep it cool and mellow everywhere else, but when it comes to playing games with my family, it's a different level.
Did you play any sports like in high school or college or anything?
No, so I played volleyball in middle school, softball, and I did everything in middle school. I got to high school. I tried out for the volleyball team, not being aware that like you're supposed to continue to work out like before, because in middle school you just show up and you go.
Yeah.
That first tryout killed me. It was so much running, and I was like,
Mhm.
I am not built for this. So I did not make the volleyball team my freshman year, and I didn't do anything freshman year outside like choir and student council and things of that sort. But the next year, I got really cool with one of the basketball coaches, and I was like, how do you become a manager of like the team? I want to do that. And he was like, well, you just ask. And he like, if you want to do it, you can do it. So my last years of high school, I was a manager for the boys basketball team, JV, my sophomore year, and then varsity my junior and senior year. I've always been someone who's kind of like watching the game, trying to learn the game, the X's and O's, and then talking about it. So being a manager was really cool to kind of see the practices, go to every game, be able to give a little input every so often, and just go from there. So like that was my sports was always more so sideline managing, coaching, quote unquote coaching, not real coaching. I don't want anybody from Milwaukee looking to hear that and think I was coaching those teams. I was on the sidelines, but I loved just watching the coaches do their job.
When you mentioned you have a degree in sport administration, right?
Sports management. Yep.
Sports management. Yeah. Which is just, there's so many facets of the sports world outside of just the people who are playing the game. There's so much that goes into making it all happen. And, it's good to give some attention to some of that too. I think the teams need, the other folks supporting them, like the managers and whatnot.
Yeah. And that's why like podcasting is so cool. Cause it's like, I can do that. And it's just like, we get to break down what we're seeing and really have the conversations. Like sports are just so fun. I mentioned like the connection with my uncles, but just on top of that too, the competitive nature, the loyalty, just all the things that go into sport. I love it. I love the competitive nature of it. I love just seeing if you can come out on top of it. I love all aspects of it.
And the communities that develop around them. I mean, living in Cincinnati, if I'm wearing Packers stuff out around town, which I do, of course, a lot, other people see, the Packers stuff, they're Packers fans. You start a conversation. If they're a Bears fan, heaven forbid, you still have a conversation you can start up with that, I love that. I love that about it.
Yeah, that's the best part for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a lot of podcasts. So you're on 4 different podcasts on the reg. And then you do a lot of guest spots with Andy as well. Well, not just the Monday spot, but you've been on with Andy. Do you have a regular spot with Andy, or is that just like a guest spot?
Guest spot at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to get to the final question that we ask for all of our guests, but we love how different the answers always are. No pressure. What do you love? It's actually a 2-part question.
Okay.
What do you love most about Packers and Bucks Twitter? And you can say wrestling too if you want to maybe even differentiate. And what would you change about those if you could, if you had the power to change?
I love the passion of both of those sport, Twitter communities. And one of my favorite quotes is always, it's along the lines of, you ask me what my greatest strength is. It takes me a second to answer that. You ask me what my greatest weakness is. I have the same pause, maybe because they're one and the same. And I think that's one of the things that for Packers and Bucks Twitter, like the passion, I love it because it's the community. Everybody's invested in it. And I've been part of both of those communities very early on in Twitter. I think I joined Twitter in 2009 at this point. Because I was in college and my professor told us we all had to have a Twitter. So I was very early on Packers Twitter, very early on Bucks Twitter, and finding that community and building in that way was always so cool. Having someone to always watch a game with, to have the same passion as you was super cool. Yeah. But the flip side to that is sometimes the trolling nature of and it's not just solely Packers or Bucks. It's kind of just like the online sports community as it is, that trolling aspect or not engaging in a tweet or a conversation to actually like debate it or maybe change your mind, but just going in with one stream of conscious, like, I don't care what you say, this is how I feel about it. And those interactions, like, well, we're not getting anything out of this. Like, I'm always willing and open to changing my mind. But again, it's online. It's the internet. So it's probably unfair to expect that from everybody. But that's the type of community I try to keep on my timeline. It's like, if we might disagree, but like, let's talk about why we disagree about this in a civil way where it's not name calling or anything like that. And then if we disagree at the end of, the conversation, then we can say, hey, we agree to disagree. Like, I understand why you feel the way. I hope you understand why I feel this way about the team. and we'll see which way it actually plays out, because the games are going to tell us everything.
That's right. You'd be amazed, Camille. We get like a completely different, unique answer from everybody who we asked this to. And we've had enough guests on the show now that there's like, you'd think eventually they get like there'd be some overlap. That was yet another completely unique answer. And that analogy
nice.
of like greatest strength, greatest weakness. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to bring something new to the table, because you guys have been doing this for a while. So to bring something new is like, yes.
Yeah. and it's wonderful. And that's why we love having new guests, not the same guests. We try. I mean, I thought by now, Matt and I have talked about this, right, Matt? About, well, maybe we'll just start like going through and asking our first guests on, and our, the second, asking them to come on for their second time. But we've been on we're on the latter part of 3 years, and we haven't had, except for some maybe fill-ins, guests more than once. It's just, and the answers are like just a colorful garden.
I love that vision. Yes.
It's wonderful.
Garden. It's awesome.
Oh, well, Camille, thank you so much for taking some time with us and helping us to get to know you a little better. I just have been following you and listening to you. You have a very cerebral approach, I feel, that I appreciate to your podcasts. And I like your calm demeanor. Because it's not always calm out there when you're fanatics about sports. So thanks again for being here. And did you have any final anything you wanted to say before we take off? We will be I'm losing my voice. We will be sorry, I've got allergies tonight. That's why I've been using the Kleenex all night. We'll be sharing all of your contact information so people can follow you and all that. So you don't have to do that. But any final thoughts before you take off?
Just thank you for having me on. It's so often where the guest spots are talking about whatever the sport topic is. It's not too often where you get a chance to just kind of talk and get people to get to know who you are as a person. So I appreciate the opportunity. I've seen the tweets from you guys where you highlight some of my things. I'm like, oh, they picked me for like the best of the week, and I'm all like, this is so cool. Like, I don't take any of this for granted. I'm just really excited to be in this space and trying to do this full time now, and having a chance, like I said, just to talk and get to know other people in the space. And yes, it's fun. So I'm really excited you guys had me on. This was a great way to spend my Thursday night.
Oh, thanks. We really appreciate your time. I agree. This is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Take care. See you soon.
See ya.
I love our guests so much.
How delightful. How delightful. Oh,
I know. We have the best time. I mean, I just love what we do, Maddie. Mm-hmm. Every time we have a new guest, every other week, it's just like I'm in love with a new person. It's just fantastic.
Agreed.
Oops. And True Crime Wifey, I'm sorry, I didn't read this to Camille. I will enjoy your podcast and I'll watch soon. Yes. And we will have that in the, if you need to find it, True Crime, I think I spelled it right. It's technical TECKNICALFOUL, technical foul. Mm-hmm. They also have a Twitter account and that kind of thing if you're looking for their link tree and all that jazz. So but you know where to find me, True Crime Wifey, if you can't find it. So enjoy that. So Maddie, time for our superlatives before we take off. I have 2 tonight.
All right, I have 3. So do you want to go back and forth starting with me?
Sure.
All right, excellent. So I have 3 that I brought this week, and I'm not at them in the show doc, so I'm going to kind of talk around it a little bit as I get to it, okay? Because that's how we cope with things in the world with digital stuff. Here we go. So my first one, best article. So Dara Carragher, who has been mentioned on the show many times because he's a fantastic writer, had a really fun article that he wrote for, I want to say Packer Report, I think. Just make sure I'm right about that. And the article was 5 fun ways to use these Packers players in 2024. And he went into a couple of because I don't want to give it all away, of course. And it is Packer Report, by the way, because people should go check it out. But I will say, just kind of give you a taste of what you can check out with that. He talks about maybe trying Bo Melton at running back, for example. And he goes from there and gets even more kind of exotic and more kind of creative with it. And it's like, ooh, I want to see all these things happen, actually, reading through them. I just love reading Dara's stuff because it's so thoroughly thought out, well
Mhm.
articulated,
Mhm.
easy and fun to read, and informative all at the same time. I feel like a lot of writers out there can hit a couple of those things, most of the time. He's every time gets them all. So always good to read Dara's stuff. Always a joy to read it, and this was no exception by any stretch. It was a great article. Highly recommend it. Very fun read.
Love that. Love Dara. And I will check that out for sure. Hopefully everybody listening will as well. I found a new, for my first one tonight, I found a new podcast that I haven't heard before.
Oh.
Well, it's a YouTube. I don't know. I think it's a podcast too.
Okay.
And I got really excited. I always get really excited when it's something brand new. There's so much out there. It's so much out
I
there.
know.
Okay. So this is from Saturday Morning Inspection. Have you heard of Saturday Morning Inspection?
No, what's that?
So they are, I forgot to write their names down. They are, I know I wrote their names down. It's just not here. Okay. NFL News and Analysis. Oh, here it is. NFL News and Analysis from Andrew and Nick, who are former college football player and a small business operator who spend way too much time watching and talking about football. And they do little segments. And so the one I found this week, it was just 8 minutes. So I liked that it's just a nice condensed. And what caught my eye, of course, is that it was about the Packers. The Packers have another young star emerging. It's not about Jordan Love.
Oh, okay.
Right. And
I assumed, right? So
right. I did too. I was like, okay, I need more about Jordan Love because I just can't get enough of it. Just inject it right into my veins, as you would say.
Mm-hmm.
So so it's a little mystery that you can listen to and find out if you're interested. It says the Green Bay Packers have a number of young talent that is making waves, but there is one Packers playmaker that has a huge chance of success that has fallen under the radar. This player is poised for a breakout year, and we should be really excited about this news.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay, so no, don't say who it is, right? Because we want people to go check it out, of course. But just one hint for us, right? Is it offense or defense or special teams?
Well, they actually mention a few different. I don't want to give it away. They mention a few different. Okay, here's the hint. Matt LaFleur was quoted in one of his last press conferences as saying he's going to be huge for us.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me if I'm right. I would just guess Romeo Dobbs, but I'll check it out to see.
Okay. It's not. I don't think it's Romeo Dobbs. I can't even remember.
If you're wrong.
Because they mentioned a couple different ones, but yes. Yep. Okay. That's a good guess. Sure. That's a good guess, but no, more under the radar.
More under the radar. Okay. All right. I'll definitely check that out.
Now, granted, if you're a Packers fanatic, it might not be under your particular radar.
That's a good point.
True, sure. Right? So I'm just going to give myself a little wiggle room on that. big lead up there. But no, it's definitely worth the listen to. I think it's a neat little show. I found them on YouTube. I think it's also a podcast. So just so you know, most podcasts now, are on YouTube as well, because YouTube now has podcasts.
Yeah.
It used to be Google Podcasts, which was a lot of our followers were listening on Google. Now they're listening on YouTube. So, yeah. Nice. How old? Give me a clue. I believe he's 24 years old. Okay,
again, don't tell me if I'm right. Okay, my second guess would be Zach Tom, but I'll check it out. I'll find out for myself.
It's not AJ Dillon, True Crime Wifey is. I'm guessing. Not AJ Dillon.
Not AJ. He's over 24. He must be over 24 right now, right? So.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
I think so.
All right.
Cool. Okay, Maddie, what's your next one?
My next one is Best Series. So sometimes, when you're watching a TV show, they'll have like a 3-episode arc, kind of like a mini arc, in the midst of a thing. I was loving that happens. You get that kind of connection from week to week. I mean, I feel like nowadays more shows are just serialized straight through. So it isn't like these little mini arcs don't develop, but kind of I think when I was growing up, you'd see more of that kind of a thing happen. It was always a lot of fun to see that. Well, there was a mini arc in one of our favorite podcasts this week. In Andy Herman's video pack a day that he does, that he also releases in the podcast platforms, he did a series where the first one was, I get the names right here, how the Packers will win the Super Bowl in 2024, had an exclamation point and everything, so you gotta like really get it dramatic there. And then the next day was how the Packers could take a step back in 2024. So you have like one side of the coin and the other side of the coin, how things go really great and what could happen to make it go really wrong.
Mhm.
You know, the thing about Andy, among other things, one of the many things about Andy is that he is so good at like presenting an argument and making it very convincing. So like you listen to the first one, you're like, oh boy, this is great. We're going to the Super Bowl. It's gonna happen. And the next one, you're like, oh no, the team's gonna like fall apart. This is awful. You're like, wait a minute. No, I'm getting caught up in rhetoric and like his convincing ability to like you know give these opinions, these arguments. Because then the third one is really kind of like the money one, because the third one was setting realistic expectations for the Packers 2024 season, because he's like, well, here are the extremes, and now that you've listened to those, you know, hopefully you should do that. You've heard the extremes. Here's where it's probably going to be, and here's what we should actually have as realistic expectations. And it's just the way how Andy's mind works as he's going through these things. And so he's like, here are 10 things to talk about to like make my argument. You're like, how did you think of 10 things about that? If I had like come on the show tonight, you're like, Matt, why do you think the Packers like will be good this year? I'll be like, here are 3 things, and I'd stumble my way through it. He's like, 10 things. Every time he does that, I'm just sitting there going, dang, man, that's impressive. So a really and especially good, even for Andy Herman's you know, high standards, a really good 3 podcast run there this week. That's definitely worth checking out.
I had to mute myself for a second because we had a big helicopter come over. That is fantastic. And of course, Andy can think of things. He's so creative in the ability to put together things that we need to hear. It's why he's like a good dad, I think. He's a good dad. And you've made fun of me for calling you dad. Yeah, but that's fantastic. And kind of like, okay, here's the extremes, here's what we should eat. I love it. I love that. Okay, so my second and final tonight is a little bit silly, but it's not. I think it's important. So let's see, what did I call it? I called it double love.
Okay.
So I have been stalking Ronica Stone and J-Lo on in Italy on Instagram.
What's a stalking? Because you're not there, like in the bushes, right?
No, I'm not stalking. So I have just enjoyed seeing. It wasn't like a ton of posts, but like about 8 photos they put out from their trip to Naples, and I'm not sure if they went anywhere else, but Naples came up a couple of days ago, and I just love seeing the love between the two of them. My favorite player in women's sports, of course, and then my favorite guy in men's sports together. It's just the best. I'm so excited. I'm just giddy about it. I sent pictures to my mom. Maybe they're going to get married there. No pressure.
That'd be a good story.
I know. They're just happy, and I just love the balance, and it's good to see, you know, them taking time. I mean, she had a long season, a good season, but their bodies, you know, need to be taken care of too, and it's just nice seeing them enjoy the fruits of their labor, literally. So, plus I love Italy, so it was fun to see the pictures. Did you follow any of that? Are you
I saw a couple of them pop up like repurposed on Twitter, basically. And they just make me smile. I mean, it's just layers of like just like fun, layers of like smiling. What I'm trying to say, layers of joy to see them. That's layers of joy.
Yeah, I mean, they just seem like both of them just such cool people. Like and it's good to see them together, but they're cool people apart. You know what I mean? See, either way, it's fine with me. But I know they've been dating for like 4 years. I know that because of the podcast that I shared a couple of months ago here, where she's, you know, was interviewed. So, but it's just nice to see that kind of joy in this world when there's so much strife and you know, stuff going on, and it's just nice to see that some things never change.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
That's lovely.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
shoot my last one then.
Sounds good.
All right, my last one is funniest. And this is an article by Zach Rapport, who writes for Acme Packing Company, which, I feel like, I don't know if everyone's out there checking up on their website every day, but you should, because they have some amazing writers like Justice Mosqueda, like Aaron Alice, our friend, like Sandwich, among many other really great writers. But anyhow, this is a really funny article that Zach wrote called Top 3 Tropes from Packers OTAs. And so to give you an example of this, like every year we always hear certain like phrases, certain tropes, coming out of OTAs, things like player X is in the best shape of his life. And he kind of goes through 3 of these, and it's very funny, very breezy read. Definitely laughed out loud more than once reading it. He's very funny. I mean, his podcast that he does, did when Acme Packing Company still had like a podcast feed. I hope he picks it back up with the new feed they have that isn't through them. But he had a really good fun podcast that he did with them too. So just a fun guy. And worth checking out the article, and like all the stuff on Acme Packing Company. It's always so good.
Everything. Yes, everything. And I was just getting from our chat another question. Who's J-Lo and who? Sorry to confuse you. J-Lo is Jordan Love, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. If you don't know, he has a little nickname. I love that nickname, I will say. I
heard enough that I forget that J-Lo for most people is Jennifer Lopez. Like I actually literally
I know, right?
True Crime Wife says that Jennifer Lopez is in Italy with without Ben. Oh, without Ben.
Oh, okay. So you're thinking no, Veronica wasn't with
Jennifer Lopez is hanging out with a volleyball player? What?
So Veronica Stone is a fantastic women's volleyball player. She plays for the San Diego Mojo. She's just like one of my favorites.
Cool. Yeah.
She's always smiling. She's just fun to watch. Like she's super funny too. Like you can tell she has a sense of humor, which I think you need when you're competing, because you're going to have losses and you're going to have critics and all that. So a sense of humor is a really great skill to have. So,
yes.
So are you still thinking about that surprise breakout player?
I was going to check it as soon as we were done here tonight.
All right. You need to, because it was a surprise too. I mean, it wasn't a surprise. I wouldn't say I would be surprised by any of our players, our younger player, right? Because we have, it's loaded. Our roster is loaded with young talent, but this one I wasn't expecting at all. So it was really kind of obscure and cool. All right, Maddie. Well, let's call it night. Let's bring her home.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little out of it tonight. You guys, I took so much allergy medicine before this show. I'm just half asleep. I'm so sorry.
Show must go on, Dawn. I absolutely did what you had to do to make sure we could all be here tonight. So, just again, going back to our guest, Camille, she is amazing. You can find her on Twitter at Camille Monet. So I'm gonna give the spelling for that. It's 1 M in Camille. It's 2 L's. So it's CAMILLE MONAE for Monet. So Monet is spelled just like Janelle Monáe. So again, Camille Monet, CAMILLE MONAE. Make sure to check out her stuff there. Of course, from her Twitter bio, her Twitter, you can find links to all the stuff that she does, all the amazing podcasts she's involved with. It's not just basketball stuff we learned here in Technical Foul. It's basketball, football, and even professional wrestling. So definitely something for everyone out there. I mean, except for the people who are just hardcore curling fans. Obviously not that.
Curling,
they probably have their own community, so I'm not going to worry about them. So anyhow, check out her stuff. She's fantastic. I mean, you heard her. She was just delightful as heck. So I'm really glad she joined us. And anyhow, friends, we'd love to have a chance to interview you and shout you out if you're a subscriber and a football fan. If you'd like to nominate someone to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know. Our DMs are open on all the social platforms. And folks, when you subscribe to our podcast, you help us to keep spreading the love in our community. And the best way to help this podcast grow is by sharing it with your friends and family.
Yes, Maddie, that's right, because we love you. We're so glad to know you, to be fans of you, and have the luxury of being fans of the most storied team in the NFL. We appreciate your support, your subscriptions, and sharing our pod, and we look forward to seeing you next week on
Hey, we like your pod.
Football in general comes down to discipline and people owning their roles. And when you aren't disciplined or you go outside the scheme, bad stuff happens.